Hello there. Today we are going to talk about the Jedi Order and the Republic during Star Wars Episode 1 through Episode 3 in the prequel trilogy. So, I thought it'd be a very interesting video to talk about the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars and during the prequel era because it's a very interesting time that we know a lot about during Legends, but we don't really know about in canon continuity. We do know a handful of things like various Jedi leaving the Jedi Order, several other Jedi going to mysteriously missing across this specific timeline, and exactly what happened to cause the Jedi Order to collapse in on itself. But we don't know specifically what that actual solid reason was. But I'm going to introduce to you the main individual who is responsible for the destruction of the Republic, the destruction of the Jedi Order as a whole, and the reason why the Sith were so capable and so powerful during this time period to the point where they would easily circumvent everyone, destroy the Jedi Order from within, and destroy the very essence of what made the Republic so great for over 1,000 years, and ultimately transformed it into the Galactic Empire, which would go on to destroy many worlds and kill millions, if not countless, of individuals throughout the entirety of the Star Wars galaxy. No one is more to blame for the destruction of the Jedi Order and the Republic as a whole than Jedi Master Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda is by far one of the most influential members of the Jedi Order, being the Grand Master. Many Jedi seek for guidance, they ask him questions about life and about the Force, and he gives them the best possible answers that he can. But also, he is partially responsible for the Clone Wars and just about everything having to do with the destruction of the Jedi Order during the time of which he was the Grand Master. Despite the fact that he is quite literally one of the most powerful individuals in the entirety of the Jedi Order, he could not see through the Force and see that Palpatine was a Sith Lord. He couldn't see the clone army that was being bred on Kamino. He couldn't see Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, who literally admissioned the clone army, and he couldn't see the fact that there was puppetry being handled in the background while the Jedi Order was slowly being corrupted by a literal dark side nexus that was underneath the Jedi Temple. In fact, when Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, literally came up to him and said, "Hey, I'm having some weird thoughts, I'm having some bad thoughts about somebody who might die. I'm very close to them. What is your advice?" His literal advice was just, get over it, you must. I'm not exaggerating. That is literally what he says to Anakin Skywalker as he is going through an emotional crisis because he thinks that his wife is about to die. He literally says to Anakin the words, "Get over it. Stop being a bitch." Also, I just want to point this out. He's 900 years old, which is a big problem. You know, typically, whenever you have like an organization, you have leadership roles, right? And these leadership roles, one after another, come by every election or so. And it's a transition of power to ensure that new ideas are being securely fastened in an organization. In this instance, Yoda has been the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, I'm assuming, for at least 500 years. Now, the Mandalorian TV show does give us some insight into Master Yoda's race. Effectively, what it is that for every 10 years that the Yoda race ages is the equivalent of effectively 1 year to humans. So it's like dog years. Every 10 years is 1 year. So whenever you get to 50 years old, Grogu's like 5. So effectively, I am going to take my best estimated guess and say that Master Yoda, since we don't know what year he actually became the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, I would assume that he became the Grand Master at about 400 years old, maybe 450 years old, which would be about 45. This means that Master Yoda at this point would be Grand Master of the Jedi Order for well about 450 years, which is a very long time for someone to be in power, and an extremely long stagnated authority role in which nothing changes, nothing happens, and the authority role basically becomes very stagnant, and the thought process and the abilities of the Jedi Order also become stagnant because everything relating to the ideologies of the Jedi Order revolve around their leader, who is literally Yoda, and Yoda has been in charge for 400 years. So, needless to say, Yoda is partially responsible for everything that's going on, but all of the other Jedi don't really help whatsoever, since all of them are essentially blank canvases that have been painted to match the ideologies of the Jedi Order, with the exception of a handful of individuals like Count Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Sifo Dyas, who were very interested in the Force and very interested in holocrons and prophecies and all of the little weird conundrums that no other Jedi really likes to get into, because that leads to a lot of weird stuff like trying to predict the future and trying to change the future, and then the future eventually happening because the future is bound to set in stone and will happen no matter what you do. So then we get to the Clone Wars, and my dear God, everything goes to hell. During the events of the Clone Wars, a vast majority of the Jedi Knights that they have on staff are literally killed off. The rest of them, after being saved by the clone troopers, are sent to lead the clone troopers in battle, as if the Jedi have any sort of experience leading any sort of army whatsoever. Yoda effectively puts the Jedi Knights on the front lines to fight battle droids, to lead an army of slave children who have literally been bred to fight for the Republic and were commissioned by Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, who supposedly died 10 years ago, immediately after commissioning an army of slave children, which is the biggest fucking red flag I have ever heard of in my entire fucking life. And also, just to mention this, your apprentice, Count Dooku, who is now the representative and the leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, a group of planets in the Outer Rim that are wanting equal representation for all planets because, equal representation should be a thing within a galactic republic making up of over 1,000 worlds, but whatever. That guy is now a Sith Lord. The most powerful Sith Lord that anyone has seen in well over a millennia. A Sith Lord who is the sworn enemy of the Jedi Order. That guy is the apprentice to Darth Sidious, the guy who's been manipulating and pulling strings to get the Clone Wars started for 20 years. That guy is also, he just so happens to be the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. Your former apprentice is the apprentice of the guy who is manipulating the entirety of the Clone Wars and all of the events that have been happening for the past 20 years, who also just so happens to be the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic that you have an alliance with as a religious organization! And just to really hit the nail on the coffin, for the entirety of the death of the Jedi Order, Jedi Master Yoda is responsible for the deaths of every single Jedi in the Jedi Order during Order 66. All of the Jedi in the Jedi Temple that were killed by Darth Vader during Operation Nightfall, that's his fault. All of the Jedi generals who were out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere during the Outer Rim sieges, who were killed by their own clone troopers when Order 66 was initiated, that's his fault. All of the Jedi who went into hiding for literal decades and were hunted down by Vader with such ruthlessness that he exterminated nearly every Jedi in the galaxy for 20 years, that is your fault. And then, in your own insanity, you went to a giant swamp planet, hid there for about 20 years, met Anakin Skywalker's son, and then proceeded to train him to kill his dad without him knowing that his dad was Darth Vader. And whenever he confronted you about it and said, "Hey, yo, my dad's Lord Vader, did you know anything about that?" you called it an inconvenience because now Luke doesn't want to kill his fucking dad. And you said, "Oh, well, that's unfortunate. You now know that your dad's Lord Vader. Okay, you still got to kill him anyway because, that's the right thing to do." The right thing to do, according to the Grandmaster of the Jedi Order, is to manipulate a 20-something-year-old individual into training his ass off to become a Jedi so he can kill his dad. Yoda's the worst. Jesus fucking Christ. I think I've had a little too much to drink.